The first time I saw the dress, it was hanging in Isabella's closet like it belonged to another world. Soft, flowing, a delicate blush pink that seemed almost alive under the afternoon light streaming through the bedroom window. I had always admired her sense of style from afar, secretly coveting the skirts, the silky blouses, the heels that clicked so confidently on hardwood floors. Never had I imagined that one day I would actually try them on myself, and that moment would change everything. I'm David, 22, working a mundane desk job at a marketing firm downtown. My life is predictable, orderly, comfortable, but quiet. Nobody at work suspects that beneath my plain button-ups and slacks, I secretly fantasize about the thrill of slipping into something delicate and feminine. It's not just about clothes, it's about a feeling I can't quite name. A rush, a liberation, a secret thrill that I have to hide even from myself sometimes. Isabella has been my girlfriend for nearly a year. She's confident, stylish, effortlessly captivating, and completely oblivious to the private desires I keep locked away. I love her, but I also envy her. Watching her move through life in perfect poise makes me feel both exhilarated and frustrated. I want to step into her world even for a moment just to understand what it feels like. It was a quiet Saturday morning. Isabella had gone to meet her friends for brunch, leaving the apartment empty, echoing with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the wooden floorboards. The light spilling through the curtains painted golden rectangles across the living room, and in that warm, quiet space temptation whispered. The dress called to me. It wasn't just fabric. It was a portal, a chance to escape the mundane. My heart raced as I stood there, hovering near her closet. Could I really do this? Just for a moment? What harm could it do? The questions buzzed in my mind, electric and urgent. I knew it was wrong, a breach of trust, but the pull was irresistible. My palms sweated as I slid the dress off the hanger, feeling the smooth silk between my fingers. A thrill ran through me, and suddenly hesitation melted into a desperate curiosity. As I stripped down to my underwear, the weight of the situation hit me. My reflection in the full-length mirror was that of a nervous, hesitant young man, but in my hands, I held something transformative. As I slipped into the dress, the fabric hugged my body in ways I had never imagined, reshaping more than just my figure. I felt different. Vulnerable, yes, but also electric, alive in a way I hadn't been before. The thrill was intensified by the thought of Isabella. I knew she would never approve, yet the idea of stepping into her shoes, literally and figuratively, was intoxicating. Our relationship had always been warm, supportive in most ways, but I had never told her this secret part of myself. It wasn't just about the clothes. It was about identity, exploration, and desire. For the first time, standing in her bedroom wearing her dress, I understood the tension that had always lived inside me. I was caught between excitement and fear, between longing and guilt. I wondered, what would she say if she knew? Would she laugh, judge, or understand? I hesitated with her heels, my fingers brushing against the leather straps. Each movement heightened the thrill, each click against the floor echoing in my chest like a drumbeat of anticipation. When I finally looked in the mirror, the reflection staring back was both familiar and alien. I was David, yes, but also something else entirely, a version of myself I had only dared to imagine. The rush was overwhelming. Every contour, every soft fold of the dress, every delicate heel under my toes. It wasn't just clothing. It was transformation. I could feel it in the way I held myself, the way my posture changed, the subtle sway in my hips. And then came the moment I should have stopped. I reached for her makeup. Just a touch, I told myself, and as I brushed the powder across my cheeks and the lipstick over my lips, something shifted. Not just in appearance but in essence. My reflection no longer belonged solely to David. It belonged to a new persona, one I couldn't immediately discard. I froze, suddenly aware of the enormity of what I had done. The dress, the heels, the makeup, it felt like more than a secret indulgence. It felt permanent. I tried to shrug it off, laughing nervously, but the sound rang hollow. Somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. A single choice had spiraled into a moment that could define me, trap me, and thrill me all at once. The apartment was quiet again. I glanced at the clock. Isabella would return soon. My heart thumped in my chest, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Could I slip back into my old self before she came home? Or was I already too far gone, caught in a transformation that refused to end? As I stood there, the reflection of the girl I had become staring back at me. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just a borrowed dress. This was a door that, once opened, might never close. And for the first time I realized, I didn't want it to close. The first moments after my initial transformation were a heady mix of exhilaration and fear. Standing in front of Isabella's full-length mirror, I traced the curves the dress created, the way the silky fabric clung in just the right places. My fingers trembled over her heels as I adjusted them, feeling the unfamiliar but intoxicating sway in my hips. Every step, every glance at the reflection made me aware of a duality I hadn't fully acknowledged before. I had imagined this, of course, dreamed of borrowing her clothes, feeling the soft fabrics against my skin, but now it was real. And real in a way that demanded recognition. I wasn't just David anymore. I was a version of David that existed in secret, one that thrilled and terrified me simultaneously. As much as I reveled in the transformation, guilt crept in like a shadow across my mind. Isabella trusted me, loved me, or so I hoped, and here I was, violating that trust for the sheer thrill of curiosity. What if she found out? Would she be horrified, laugh it off, or worse, feel betrayed? I paced the living room in heels, the click of each step loud in the empty apartment. My mind raced. Every sound outside made me flinch. The distant hum of traffic, a neighbor's dog barking, the creak of the building settling. Each sound reminded me that the thrill came with a price. The constant fear of discovery. I couldn't stop at just the dress and heels. The makeup called to me, whispering promises of a perfect disguise, a full embodiment of the persona that had taken over. I picked up Isabella's makeup bag, my fingers brushing against powders, lipsticks, and brushes. The first swipe of foundation against my skin was electric. Layer by layer I transformed. Cheeks contoured, eyes lined and shadowed, lips painted in soft rose. Each application made my reflection more convincing, more alien, yet undeniably me. I studied my face, noting the delicate arch of the eyebrows, the flutter of eyelashes that now framed wide, uncertain eyes. With each brushstroke I felt the thrill intensify, and so did the anxiety. Sitting in her chair, twirling in the dress, I realized I could act, move, even speak differently. My voice, when I tested it, was higher, softer, more melodic. The sensation of adopting these mannerisms was intoxicating. I felt light, almost weightless, but at the same time exposed. I wondered, could I live like this without being discovered? Would Isabella notice subtle changes if I tried this outside the apartment? The very idea made my heart race and palms sweat. The apartment, once a safe haven, now felt like a stage under constant observation. Isabella was due back soon. Every rustle of paper, every creak of the floorboards sounded amplified in my ears. I tried to move slowly, gracefully, testing the dress and heels, but even in silence, the fear of being caught pressed on me like a physical weight. I imagined her walking in at any moment, seeing me twirling in her clothes, makeup smudged slightly from my nervous hands. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, a mix of dread and excitement. Could I return to my normal self before she came home? Or had the transformation already embedded itself too deeply to simply undo? As I explored more, I noticed subtle changes in my posture, in my confidence. The dress forced me to hold my shoulders differently, the heels made my hips sway, and the makeup made me aware of every angle of my face. Each movement was electric, every glance in the mirror a confirmation of the thrill. Even mundane tasks, pouring water, sitting at the kitchen table, checking my phone, felt altered. The dress moved with me differently, the heels made me conscious of every step, and the makeup made my reflection seem like a stranger and an intimate friend at the same time. The suspense began to build with small, everyday events. I knocked over a glass, its crash echoing far too loudly. My heart raced as I imagined Isabella's reaction. I fumbled with the zipper on the back of the dress, nearly pinching my skin, cursing under my breath. Each small mishap reminded me that this indulgence wasn't without risk. Then came a sudden sound from the hallway. Footsteps? I froze, holding my breath. No, it was just the neighbor or maybe the wind. But my imagination had already set the stage for disaster. The thrill was inseparable from fear and I was hooked. I sat in front of the mirror for what felt like hours, tracing the curves of the dress, adjusting the hem, repositioning my hair. The vulnerability was profound. Every imperfection, every crease in the fabric, every uneven stroke of lipstick made me hyper-aware. Yet alongside the vulnerability was an undeniable rush, a thrill unlike anything I had experienced before. I began to experiment further, trying on accessories. Earrings, bracelets, necklaces. Each addition made the persona more complete, more convincing. The girl in the mirror stared back at me with wide, curious eyes, and in that gaze, I saw a part of myself I hadn't allowed to breathe before. By the time I heard the faint sound of keys in the lock, my heart was pounding not just from fear, but from exhilaration. Isabella would be home soon. Could I hide what I had done? Could I pretend to be David again, or had I already become someone else entirely? The dress, the heels, the makeup, it all felt permanent now. I tried to convince myself I could slip out of it, just as easily as I had slipped in, but my reflection told a different story. My reflection hinted at the suspense yet to come, the challenge of keeping the secret, the thrill of walking a dangerous line, and the anxiety that this borrowed indulgence could spiral far beyond what I had imagined. The sound of the front door opening made my heart stop. I had been so absorbed in my reflection, adjusting my wig and brushing the dress, that I hadn't heard her keys. The metallic jingle echoed in the hallway, each note a hammering reminder that my secret world was about to collide with reality. "David? You home?" Isabella's voice floated through the apartment, calm and unsuspecting. My breath caught in my throat. The high heels made me wobble slightly as I crouched behind the couch, trying to appear casual, though casual was impossible now. I scrambled mentally for an excuse, a cover story. My mind raced. What do I say? That I was cleaning? That I tripped over something? None of it would explain the dress, the makeup, the heels. Every heartbeat pounded like a drum in my ears. Isabella's footsteps grew closer. I could hear the faint click of her shoes, the rustle of her bag as she set it down. She would see me any second. My hands shook as I attempted to smooth the fabric to make myself appear normal, but the dress refused to cooperate, clinging in ways that emphasized rather than concealed. "David, is that you?" Isabella's voice was gentle, curious, not accusing, but it cut through me like a knife. I froze mid-step, a blush spreading across my cheeks despite the foundation. Yeah, it's me," I stammered, voice higher than usual. The effort to sound casual failed miserably. My throat felt dry, my heart threatening to leap from my chest. She tilted her head, squinting. "That's different. Are you trying something new?" Her tone was neutral, but the scrutiny was suffocating. My mind screamed, "Hide. Act normal. Don't let her see." I attempted a small, awkward wave, but the movement was too slow, too exaggerated. My heel caught on the rug and I almost fell forward. Isabella's eyes widened and my stomach dropped. I had never felt more exposed. Once she was in the living room, the tension was unbearable. I stood there, frozen like a statue, balancing in unfamiliar shoes, the dress pinching at my waist in all the wrong ways. Every instinct screamed to flee, to run to my bedroom and strip everything off, but fear rooted me to the spot. Isabella sat on the couch, her eyes flicking between my face, the wig and the dress. "David, this is bold," she said softly, but the uncertainty in her tone made my mind spiral. Would she laugh? Cry? Confront me? I wanted to explain, to confess the thrill, the curiosity, the way the clothes felt like an extension of myself. But the words lodged in my throat. The secret felt too heavy, too fragile. The dress wasn't just clothing anymore. It was a symbol of my dual life, the persona I had created and explored. Every movement reminded me that slipping back into my old self wasn't simple. The wig falling slightly from its pins mirrored my vulnerability. The heels teetering under my weight represented the precarious balance I maintained between secrecy and revelation. I realized in that moment that this was bigger than a simple experiment. The persona I had embraced had layers, emotions, and desires I hadn't faced before. And Isabella's presence threatened to strip it all away, or worse, expose it. Before I could regain my composure, a sudden knock echoed through the apartment. Both of us froze. Isabella frowned. Who could that be? I panicked internally. A neighbor? A delivery? Worst of all, someone who might see this version of me? The thought made my pulse accelerate. I glanced at Isabella, whose curiosity now matched my terror. "I'll check," she said, standing and moving toward the door. I had mere seconds to decide, reveal myself fully or retreat into a corner, hoping the intruder would leave. The door opened and a familiar face entered, the ex-girlfriend I hadn't seen in months. Her eyes immediately locked on me. Well, isn't this unexpected? She said, a mischievous smirk spreading across her face. I didn't think I'd find you like this. Time seemed to freeze. The ex-girlfriend's gaze traveled over every detail. The dress, the heels, the makeup. My reflection in the mirror caught the mix of shock, amusement, and intrigue on her face, amplifying my panic. David, or should I say, she paused, letting the words hang, Davidandra? Her tone was playful, but the implication was clear. My secret had been unveiled and I was defenseless. Isabella's expression transformed from curiosity to confusion, then shock, and finally a mix of concern and incredulity. My heart raced, my mind screamed, and my body felt like it had forgotten how to move. In the chaos, I was overwhelmed by shame, fear, and a strange surge of pride. Shame for being caught, fear of losing Isabella's trust, and pride for fully embracing this side of myself, even if exposed prematurely. I wanted to vanish, to shrink into the shadows of the persona I had created. Yet the thrill, the undeniable rush of being seen, of living this forbidden indulgence, pulsed through me like a second heartbeat. I realized that no matter what happened next, I could never truly go back to who I was before. The room was a powder keg of emotions. Isabella looked at me, the ex-girlfriend smirked knowingly, and I stood frozen in my heels, the dress clinging like a second skin. The choice was clear. Continue embracing this persona, risking relationships and judgment, or retreat, denying a part of myself forever. The knock at the door, the smirk of my ex, and Isabella's stunned expression combined into a single crushing weight of suspense. My secret, my indulgence, my identity, all were on the brink of exposure. And I had no idea which way it would tip. Time seemed to stop. I stood there, dressed in the borrowed outfit, my heels precarious, the wig slightly askew, while Isabella and my ex-girlfriend exchanged glances that I couldn't read. My heart was pounding so loudly it felt like the room would shake. The air was thick with anticipation, curiosity, and unspoken questions. Every instinct screamed at me to explain, to run, to hide, but my legs refused to move. I realized with a jolt that this wasn't just a fleeting experiment anymore. Something about the dress, the makeup, the entire transformation felt permanent in my mind, even if it wasn't physically irreversible yet. Isabella finally spoke, her voice trembling slightly. David, what's going on here? The way she said my name, half worry, half incredulity, made my stomach twist. I tried to form words, but they caught in my throat. I wanted to tell her everything. The curiosity, the thrill, the way I had felt more myself than ever in the dress. But fear made my lips sealed. Her eyes narrowed, scanning me like she was piecing together a puzzle. Are you wearing her clothes? I nodded, silently praying she wouldn't react with anger or mockery. But I could see the confusion and shock in her gaze. The bond of trust between us felt fragile, like a thin sheet of ice over a deep abyss. My ex-girlfriend didn't help. She leaned slightly forward, smirking. Looks like someone's found a new hobby, huh? Her tone was teasing, almost malicious. I didn't think you had it in you to pull this off. But wow. You look really good. Her words were a double-edged sword. Part of me felt a rush of pride. After all, I had transformed fully into this persona. Another part of me was terrified that Isabella would side with her, or worse, see me as some sort of joke. For a brief moment, everything was silent. My pulse raced as I considered my options. I'd confess fully, reveal every detail of my secret cross-dressing, the thrill, and the identity exploration. Hide and retreat. Run to my room, strip off the clothes, and hope Isabella didn't push further. Play it off. Pretend it was some silly experiment, a harmless joke, and try to regain control. Each option carried risk. Each risk carried consequences. And I realized deep down that no matter which path I chose, my life was about to change forever. I glanced at the mirror across the room. My reflection stared back at me, a perfect blend of vulnerability and boldness. The dress clung, the makeup was impeccable, the wig framed my face just right. In that reflection I saw not just David but Davidandra. A version of myself that felt undeniably real. The mirror captured the tension, the thrill, and the fear in a single frame. It reminded me that this wasn't just about clothes. It was about identity, desire, and the choices I had to make. As Isabella opened her mouth to speak, a sudden ring from the front doorbell echoed through the apartment. My heart skipped a beat. Who else could it be? Another neighbor? Friend? Someone who might witness this entire scene? Both women looked toward the door. My ex's smirk widened as if she knew exactly what the bell meant. Isabella's eyes flicked between me and the door, her expression unreadable. I took a shaky step back, balancing carefully on the heels, my fingers clutching the fabric of the dress. In that frozen moment I realized, everything was hanging by a thread. My secret, my identity, my relationships, all teetered on the edge of exposure. The door slowly creaked open, and everything went silent. Would Isabella forgive me? Would she embrace this side of me or see me as someone entirely different? And what did my ex-girlfriend truly want from this unexpected encounter? The answers were uncertain, but one thing was clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. What would you do if you were in David's shoes? Would you confess your secret, hide, or play along? Comment below with your thoughts and don't miss the next episode to see what happens.